invoking the blessings of the Jyotirlinga Mahakaleshwar and the blessings of the two gurus sitting here, I now salute my brothers and sisters from all over the world, including the great masters in the front rows, and all of us. I consider myself a student of the ancient Indian wisdom. Friends, you may wonder as to why a medical scientist is here in this audience. But I am primarily a part of all of you, and medical science is only my way of life. I happen to be a doctor of the conventional Western medicine, but I have, to tell you very frankly, between you and me, very little faith in what we do as doctors. The father of modern medicine did warn us correctly. He said, cure rarely, comfort mostly, but console always. We take a Hippocratic oath when we pass to preserve life and to be fair to all concerned and treat my patient as God and to preserve life from conception to the end. But very quickly we become hypocrites because we start making money, and money destroys this world. Friends, our greatest enemy of mankind, and if you look at the history of mankind, up until money came on the scene, man had no illness whatsoever. Man had no greed, no jealousy, no sort of corruption, and no illness and no ill will. When money came in, all things started, and we started going back to our roots to say, where is yoga? What is yoga? What is Sanatana Dharma? What is spirituality? And what have you? It was so beautifully put in the Western mind by a great poet, an English poet, a romantic poet, William Wordsworth. When in 1802, the first industrial revolution started in the West, he wrote a beautiful poem called The World is Too Much With Us. I'll give you one stanza. The world is too much with us, late and soon. Getting and spending, we seem to have lost our powers. Little do we see in nature that is ours. We have sold our soul. I have added a little to that, to the devil, comma, a sordid boon, full stop. This is where it all started, friends. Now, the topic of this conference today, put forth with so much of trouble, looking into every minutiae of details by Pandit Radheshamji, a good friend of mine, and he has been insisting for the last about 6 months that I come here, and because of him, I am here. I must admit that last 2 times he tried, I tried, but I couldn't be here. But this time, Mahakaleshwar said, I must be here, and I am here. Thank you, Panditji. As our guru from Portugal rightly said, this is the greatest part of the world where poets, gods, goddesses, and great people all descended in the same place. And even Vikramaditya, a king who was known for his justice and for his compassion, was ruling this land. So I am honored to be in this land of holiness. But don't envy my position here, because some great people have spoken. Mark Twain once said, human brain starts functioning from the time you are born, only to stop when you stand before an audience after brilliant speakers have spoken. So if I speak something from now on, it is not from my brain, but from my spinal cord. Let me look at science, because I have been a student of the classical Western science for more than half a century. But ever since the first day in my science class, I have been wondering what this science is all about. We have what is called a reductionist science, vis-a-vis the true science of holism, which looks at the whole. For the younger generation here, let me tell you the difference between those two jargons. You all know what chocolate is, and you all know how chocolate tastes. But we, reductionist scientists, try to find out what chocolate is made up of: cocoa, sugar, and milk. And we study milk in great detail and describe chocolate as milk. Look at medical science. I take a specimen of the liver, stain it, which means I kill the cells, and look under the microscope the tombstone of a liver cell and say, this liver cell is cancer. I don't know how we say that, because it's only a tombstone. You're not seeing the cell functioning. But one of the greatest biologists who got the Nobel Prize and wrote a book called Introduction to Submolecular Biology, Albert Szent-Györgyi, said, I don't know what cancer is, because a cancer cell works exactly like a normal cell. And I don't know how people can try to kill a cancer without killing the normal cell. And that's exactly what I've been saying for the last 40 years. And I've been getting brickbats and almost, people wanted to kill me. I almost lost my job for writing the truth. But today, I'm so happy that the American Cancer Institute invites me for a conference of contrarian view on cancer, because they said, most of what you say is true, because 75% of what we call cancer are not cancers, and we probably are killing more people than we save. Let me incidentally tell you, in 5 countries at different times in the last 50 years, doctors went on strike where there were no private doctors. Bogota in Colombia, Saskatchewan in Canada, Los Angeles County some years ago, Dublin about a decade ago, and Israel recently. And to cut the long story short, every time doctors went on strike from 3 months to 6 months, death rate fell down precipitously and disability almost disappeared. Only to come back and level again when the doctors came back to work. And in fact, in Israel recently, the government was forced to pay extra pay to the doctors to come back to work, and the bribing was done by the morticians because their coffins were not sold at all. Ayurveda, the ancient Indian wisdom for all kinds, the Sanatana, no age, it's not no beginning, no end. This Sanatana wisdom also proclaimed that in the future, if you doctors go after money, you will do wrong things. Vaidhyarajo namastubhyam. I salute you. Yamaraja Sahodara, you are the brother of Yamaraja. But that's a compliment, because Yama follows Niyama. In yoga is a Niyama. Yama treats everyone equally. Whether you are a dog or a king, he kills you identically. Whereas man treats the dog in a big way and the king in a big way and the dog in a very small way and look down upon it. No, Yama doesn't do that. So it's a compliment. But the second line is not a compliment. Yamastu harati pranan. Yama only takes life. Vaidhyo pranan dananicha. You take life and money both. And today's world, if in the Western world of what is called advanced science, if you fall ill, your whole life is destroyed. You're finished. All that you earned all your life to spoil your health is taken away by the hospitals to so-called re-give you your health, which they never will be able to give it. Because we have built around ourselves a system called health scare system. My friend Alex a little while ago said, India is the capital and would be the capital of diabetes in the next 50 years. Right, Hanks? Yes. This is one of the biggest myths that we have been trying to sell to the world, thanks to a handful of so-called diabetologists being funded by the drug companies. And the truth is that India, in the next 50 years, will be an ideal place for diabetics, because the diabetic mortality will be about 80% in the West, where it will be just 30% in India. Today, the West is aping the South Indian rice diet for diabetics. What we are doing is, we are asking even rice eaters to eat wheat when you have diabetes, because wheat has gluten, which directly destroys your pancreatic islet cells. And if you are a diabetic once, and if you eat wheat, you will be a diabetic permanently. And so I get a permanent patient to make money. Did you get this? Now, I'll tell you how we produce diabetes in India. Most of you sitting here must have heard of a tablet called statin to lower your so-called cholesterol. I don't know what cholesterol is. 10% of people who start taking statins become diabetics within 6 months to 12 months. Which means, as far as my statistics at the moment tells me, 11 million people are on statins in India, which means 1.1 million diabetics we are producing every year. That will add to the so-called diabetic, what is called the epidemiology. I have written an article, and it was also an editorial in the Lancet, the leading medical journal. I said, epidemiologists cause epidemics. Supposing there are 2 cases of malaria in Ujjain, the paper will write, there's a malaria epidemic in Ujjain. If you read that, you get so frightened that your immune system gets completely suppressed and malaria will catch you. So I have been struggling to tell the so-called health authorities all over the world, do not frighten the people, because fear is the key. Fear is the key that kills you, and the fear is put in by us. And ultimately what matters is our immune system. When Morarji Desai was drinking his own urine, the whole world was laughing at him. Whole world was laughing at him. Today, auto-urine therapy is scientifically proved to be a very powerful immune booster. We have hailed the germ theory. Actually, germs are not our enemies. Germs are our friends. Germs are us. In our body, in every human chromosome, while there are 23 to 25,000 genes which belong to us, our parents and our grandparents and our ancestors, 2.5 trillion genes belong to germs of all kinds in the world. If you look at nature, that's what Wordsworth wrote, little do we see in nature that is ours. You see a little kid, if you have a kid at home, when it starts crawling, it goes to the corner, picks up the dust and puts it in the mouth. This is vaccination of the best variety. It is eating the germs to create the immune strength in its body. Today what we have done, we have sterilized our home, we have sterilized our glass, our tumbler, everything, so that the child has not met with germs at all and has not had any vaccination which is given by nature. And even if that child goes out, like an American child coming to India for the first time and drinking from an Indian tumbler, the child will get severe gastroenteritis. But the problem has become very acute in the West because the germs that we thought of our enemies and tried to kill them with antibiotics, antiseptic soaps and what have you, because there's a big industry behind it and it's the industry that is pushing it. And what has happened is their immune system is so low that when they get admitted to the intensive care units of the hospitals, which today have become a route to go to heaven, and there's where patients are killed, irrespective of what you go there initially with, you get what is called a nosocomial infection. That's the infection which is acquired in the hospital, which invariably kills you. Time was when in the 18th century, Alex will remember, in Britain when hospitals started, any patient who went to the hospital went to heaven. That's why it's called hospitalism. And the person who brought it down was Florence Nightingale. She was not a doctor, she was not even a nurse, because she was just a woman who looked after the sick with all her compassion. And mortality in the Crimean War, which was 100% of wounded soldiers, came down to 40% in 6 months after Nightingale came in there. What did she do? She called herself the general of buckets, soaps, and bread and bandage. All that she did was clean the wound, dress it, talk to them nicely, and give them the food that they needed very badly. Today we know the latest research in Oxford, in 4 universities actually, Oxford, Cambridge, Hamburg and Munich, together, led by an Oxford professor called Bingel, showed that even when you give a very powerful drug like morphia is the most powerful painkiller to a patient with severe pain, unless you tell the patient this is morphia and it's going to cure you, patient is not going to get pain relief at all. What they did was they were running morphia drip in a patient with severe pain, but told the patient, this is not morphia, this is a new vitamin we have found out for your disease. No patient got pain relief. On the contrary, the same patient, crossover, they were just running saline drip and told the patient, this is morphia, and everybody got pain relief. This is reductionist science, my dear friends. But these scientists did something more. They said, why does it happen? So they did what's called fMRI, functional MRI, which studies your brain at the same time. We showed that when the patient believed that this doctor is doing good to me, he is giving me morphia, even if it is saline, the brain produces painkillers from the forebrain and the pain completely disappears. Now this is latest scientific research. Now come back to yoga. You sit down and meditate and get into that state of mind where your mind produces opioids in the brain. There is this girl who should have got the Nobel Prize but was snatched away by her boss because boss took the credit and she fought it, and her name is Candace Pert. And Candace was the girl who showed for the first time that not only the brain but every cell has a mind, and that's called the opiate receptors outside. And Candace has written a book after she was thrown out of the palace. You know, in science we call it the NIH, the palace. They're all kings sit there. And then she was thrown out and she wrote a beautiful book for all of you, Molecules of Emotion, where she says, time has come for us not to reach to a tablet when you get a headache, but to sit in one corner and meditate. And when you become tranquil, your headache disappears because your head produces enough morphia. What a beautiful thought. Friends, you thought science came from the West. You will be surprised. There were thinking scientists also in the West. And the thinking scientist, one of the great thinking scientists, Charles Sherrington, in 1899, who was a professor of medicine and got his Nobel Prize. And he wrote, I quote, positive sciences do not answer the question why. They can at best answer the question how or how much. Ratio re is therefore not raised in why. He said, as a physiologist, I can say, how does the muscle contract? But I'll never be able to say, why does the muscle contract? And he said, for knowing that, you must go into teleology. And teleology, in other words, is what is called spirituality. What is spirituality, Alex? Spirit, not spirits that is sold in the wine shop. Spirit is spirus, breath. So our ancestors were cave dwellers. Their science was, they observed. That's called observational science. And today, observational science has come to the fore from the reductionist laboratory science. What does the observation science say? They saw animals which die, they don't breathe. The animals which are alive, they breathe. They thought, and they correctly surmise that breath is God who comes into you when you're born and leaves you when you're dead. And that's where spirit started spirituality. But friends, the real meaning of spirituality is sharing and caring. This is the essence of all spirituality in this world. Today we have changed the definition of health, and this is accepted by the IOM. In February 28th to 2010, we have been able to get the IOM, Institute of Medicine in America, the highest body which audits medicine, to accept the definition of health as enthusiasm to work. You get up in the morning and say, do I want to work? And if the answer is yes, you are healthy. Number two, enthusiasm to be compassionate. If you are compassionate, you are a spiritual being, and you think and know that I has no meaning, but we has meaning. Me and Desai Sahib, Yogaraj Desai Sahib, are the same because the consciousness is universal and we are part of the universal consciousness, individual consciousness. If I hurt him and if I think of hurting him, my own body gets hurt. What we did not know till today, what we call in a dignified language autoimmune disease, where your own body cells kill your own body cells, today we know it is because me, you concept. We all have this concept, it's mine. I am this, so and so is, Radhe Shyam is different. No, Radhe Shyam is me. And Radhe Shyam cells love my cells as much as I love my cells. And if I hate Radhe Shyam, it hurts not Radhe Shyam, but myself, because Radhe Shyam cells still don't know that I hate him. But my cells know I am hating him. Did you get this message? Now you think Western science has taught us science? No. The three physicists from Oxbridge, let us say, Cambridge, Oxford, they came here to study yoga in the early part of the 20th century. Babington, Charles Leadbeater, and Annie Besant. All the three were teaching physics. And they came here, went to the Himalayas, and became yogis and yogic siddhis. And Annie Besant writes, I quote, when we sit in samadhi, I get the third eye, like the eyepiece of a microscope. And I am able to visualize the atomic structure of 9 elements from hydrogen to helium. And she wrote a book in 1920 called Occult Chemistry. People laughed at her. Of course, she stayed back, she started the Congress party, and unfortunately that's the misery for India. But that's a different story. Coming back to the old story of Annie Besant, today we know the old idea of Einstein, Niels Bohr, Paul Dirac, of an atomic thing, electron running around nucleus and jumping up and down is all I should use this unparliamentary word, bullshit. You don't know what is inside the atom because the atom doesn't have anything. It's there, it's not there in quantum physics. It is there now, it is not there now. And now they rejuvenated the 1920 book of occult chemistry by the greatest scientists, Nobel laureates, into a thick book. I still have the original 1920 copy, which is just thin, produced by the Oxford University Press in Madras. But today, you have occult chemistry this thick. That's all the difference. They add on to that. And in medicine, what we do is, we have added on things to nothing, and we have come to believe now that there is a pill for every ill. There's an article I have written in the British Medical Journal. There isn't a pill for every ill, but there is an ill following every pill. Which has now been proved to be right, because now the most important cause of death in the world is the medical establishment. And in the medical establishment, the leading cause of death is ADR, adverse drug reactions. You go to a doctor, you come out with a laundry list of drugs. Each one of us scientifically, quote unquote, know what one drug does for one disease. If you are given 20 drugs, God only knows scientifically how they interact between each other and kill you very effectively. Today, anybody goes to the hospital, goes to the intensive care unit. God knows why. Now I know why. In America, 90% of the hospital profits accrue from keeping dying patients in the hospital, intensive care unit, for the last 10 days. So we have come back to the 18th century idea of hospitalism. You go to the hospital to go to heaven. Dignity of death is lost. And if you want to get all that back, and you want to become again human beings, and human and humane, we have only one route to go back to our roots. All of you, many of you must have taken sleeping pills sometime or other. And many of you need a cup of coffee to wake you up, and probably a peg of whiskey to put you to bed. This all started with scientific discovery of the electric bulb. Thomas Alva Edison found out the electric bulb. Up until then, mankind used to sleep when sun goes down and to wake up much before the sun comes up in the Brahmi Muhurtam, because your circadian rhythm is tied on to the sun. Now tell me, in large cities like New York, Bombay, Delhi, where is the night? There's no night at all. So you must get sleeplessness. So friends, we must go back to our roots, and the only route is go through the route of Indian Sanatana Dharma. India had a great epic, like Iliad's, Homer, etc. Done. Time done. 1 minute more. Oh, that's good. I thought I was done. 1 minute, you can do wonders. I have 60 minutes. I will sum up all that I have been saying so far. 45 seconds left. De Valera said, if you want to sell a point to an audience, tell them first what you're going to tell them. Then tell them what you told them. Now, in the next 30 seconds, I'll tell you what I have told you, and that is essence of Mahabharata. 2 words, Dharma Kshetre, Kurukshetre. Split it. Dharma plus Kshetra, Kuru plus Kshetra. Rewrite it. Kshetre, Kshetre, Dharmam Kuruhu. In every walk of life, do your duty.